Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I just want to let you know
Yeah.
that I am in your physical class. I had to join by Zoom today, though.
Okay, that's fine. Just when I call your name, when I take attendance, just make sure you respond. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, friends, welcome back. Welcome to week 4. The agenda for today is quite simple. We'll continue and hopefully wrap up our discussion on business intelligence. Towards the end of this session, I will tell you a little bit about our plans for Thursday, what we will do in the lab. So I'll share with you my uh, plan on how we're going to proceed, and you'll let me know what you think, whether it works for you or not. But in brief, on Thursday, we'll continue working on individual assignment 2, and hopefully finish individual assignment 2. Okay, so let's go back to our business intelligence module, if you don't mind. As usual, I would like to tell you, if you're joining us in Zoom, feel free to jump in, just use your voice. No need to type anything into the chat because I may not respond in a timely fashion if you're typing something in chat. So just use your voice, feel free to interject, feel free to make comments or ask questions. Okay, so we're continuing our business intelligence module. So I will go ahead and open my PowerPoint deck from this link right here. Now, I would like to remind you that this is probably the most important slide or the most important diagram for this entire topic of business intelligence. What you see here is the so-called generic business intelligence architecture. It outlines the main components of a business intelligence platform, or in a broader sense, business intelligence initiative, which includes not only data technologies, but also business processes and business users and strategies. So largely our discussion on business intelligence is centered around the components depicted in this generic BI architecture. Last time we mostly talked about this area right here. We talked about sourcing data and also organizing data, and we touched a little bit on the topic of metadata. We also talked about organizing data not only in the data warehouse for storage purposes, but also for access purposes in the form of dependent or independent data marts. So that's what we talked about last time. Today, we'll talk mostly about specific business intelligence technologies and applications. So we'll have like a brief and non-exhaustive survey of the kind of tools or technologies used as a part of business intelligence applications or business intelligence tools. We will also talk about business intelligence users, about different data needs, different analytical needs that different users of business intelligence applications have. And we will talk in a bit more detail about metadata processes, data quality processes, and governance processes in relation to data and business intelligence. And that will complete our discussion on business intelligence, because we'll be done with all the main components of a generic business intelligence architecture. So first, we will talk about business intelligence users. So we'll jump to this slide if you don't mind. Within an organization, we can have all kinds of users. Sorry, one second. Within an organization, we can have all types of users that rely on the business intelligence infrastructure, business intelligence applications offered within the organization. For example, IT developers may also need to access organizational data. Most likely, they will access technical data to fulfill their needs with respect to maintenance of the IT infrastructure, security, data quality assurance, if you're talking about somebody who works in the line of database administration or data management. Frontline workers, by that we usually mean people or employees that face the customer, like customer service representatives. It's actually amazing nowadays how you can call that help support number and they will be able to retrieve all kinds of data about your purchase, about your order, right? So naturally, you know how it happens, right? They have access to all those tools or applications that rapidly allow them to retrieve the information that they need to rapidly answer your question and serve your request. Analysts, a lot of organizations, they have this specific group of people called business analysts or system analysts. And to me, this is a very generic category of workers. Strictly speaking, an analyst, well, let's talk about different types of analysts. If you're talking about data analyst, that's something that our class is related to. It's somebody who manages, organizes, and analyzes data to answer questions that are relevant to organizational performance, organizational business. So those people are called data analysts. If you're talking about business analysts, then typically we are talking about people who are somewhere between technology workers and business workers. So they help business users formulate their requirements towards information technology or business intelligence applications. And those requirements are implemented by technical specialists, such as programmers, database developers, database administrators, and so forth. And then we have systems analysts. When people say systems analysts, sometimes they mean business analysts. They don't make that distinction. So it's somebody who works with business users and IT specialists. But sometimes by systems analysts, they mean somebody who works for the IT department, IT support. So those people are responsible for managing the technology infrastructure. Again, they may have a need for technical data in relation to IT assets, databases, network administration, security logs, and things like that. Information workers nowadays, an increasingly growing share of employees within an organization, they're information workers. In other words, they don't carry bricks, they don't do physical work, they work with information. Okay. And I'll digress a little bit. In my opinion, if you're an information worker, if you're sitting in front of a computer all day, you need to have a physical hobby, something along the lines of gardening or hiking or something like that keeps you connected to the physical world, right? I don't think it's healthy to be too much immersed in the world of bits and information because, again, we humans, we're socio-technical organisms. In other words, there's that physical component of us, right, that needs to be connected to the real physical world. But anyways, nowadays, a lot of workers are information workers. They deal exclusively with information in their daily work, and naturally, they need to be supported. Their information needs need to be addressed or supported with all kinds of tools and technologies. Managers and executives, they also need information. They also need to receive data. They also need to receive data analysis. In the old days, managers and executives, they were like more of leadership figures, right? They didn't sit behind computers. In fact, 20, 30 years ago, a computer was viewed as an advanced version of a typewriter, right? So a lot of senior managers, they viewed computers as typewriters, as simple clerical tools, and they tried to stay away from it, and they kind of kept themselves closer to people, politics, organizational issues, and so forth. And I think they still do, they still do. But nowadays, it's becoming very common for executives to be directly involved with technology. In other words, to use technology to answer their questions on their own without relying on somebody else to do it for them, right? Case in point, Donald Trump. I mean, do you think it was him posting all those tweets or somebody was doing it for him? What do you think? I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but to me, it looked like he did it himself. I mean, it looks like he's digging out data, like posting all those announcements. Maybe some of those announcements were not him, but I'm thinking that at least some of those announcements were done by him directly, right? Elon Musk, do you think it's him tweeting or not? Yeah, so probably it's, at least some of those tweets are his personal opinions, right? It's not like a PR agency or secretary typing those things for him, right? Those things changed approximately in 1990s, where executives became increasingly reliant on technology for their daily work. For example, in 1990s, there was a rumor that you could send an email to Bill G at Microsoft.com, and that was the personal email account of Bill Gates. I would imagine a lot of people would send him an email asking for money because at that time he was the richest person in the world. Also, there was a website, I don't know whether it's still up. Again, there was a rumor that Steve Jobs' email at Apple was steve@apple.com. So he would directly use his email, right? And there was a fan website, like a blog, where they would publish funny responses to questions sent to that email. Most of those responses were like one word or like one phrase response. Just to give you an example, somebody sent him an email. I think it was in relation to iPhone 3. I don't know whether you remember, there was a scandal involving iPhone 3. it looked like a great phone. It had all kinds of functions, but it was bad in one thing, which is receiving calls, right? So the reception signal was always very low. They blame it on the casing and things like that. Anyways, somebody wrote him a long email complaining about those issues, and the response was deal with it. So that was like the response supposedly of Steve Jobs to that request. So yeah, managers and executives are increasingly using data and business intelligence tools to answer their questions. Suppliers, customers, regulators, they also need to be supported by business intelligence, especially within large organizations. Recently, there have been 2 new categories of business intelligence users, and those users, they are very much involved with business intelligence, data science, data analysis, business analytics, and those people are called data scientists and chief data officers. Okay? I think, in my opinion, a data scientist is I guess, more fashionable name for business analyst or data analyst. In the old days, those people were called data analyst or business analyst. Now they're called data scientist. I guess this new title justifies higher salaries. I mean, if you look at statistics about data scientist employment and salaries, you will see all kinds of promising figures. Number one, there are a lot of projections that, in the United States alone, there will be a shortage of 100, 200, 300,000 specialists who have skills in relation to both data, advanced analytics, and technology, right? And then if you look at salaries, you will see that a lot of times salaries for data scientists, especially if you're talking about a chief data scientist, right? They start with, I don't know, 6-figure amount, like 120, 130, $150,000. In my opinion, it's a rare skill to be a data scientist, because to be a data scientist, you need to have skills across several areas. First of all, you need to have a good understanding of statistics, right? And a lot of computer scientists, they don't. I mean, like, for example, in this, you guys, you're majoring in computer science. You don't take too many courses in statistics, right? Maybe there's none, actually. I know you take courses in calculus, right? But
I mean, that's fine.
So you take like intro to statistics, right? Well, anyways, that may be sufficient for some roles, but usually data scientists, they're like, part-time statisticians, right? Plus, a lot of successful data scientists that I've seen, they're also not only they're trained, talented statisticians, they have the kind of computing skills at the level of a very experienced programmer, right? So, for example, I took some courses from Johns Hopkins University in data science using R, and I was surprised that, well, first of all, our teachers in that sequence of courses, they were they advertised themselves as medical healthcare professionals because they were working for the School of Health or biomedics or something like that. But their research was largely about health, right, medicine. Okay, and then I realized that they also a lot of them they actually have degrees in statistics, right? So I was okay. So you have a degree in statistics, you work in healthcare. And then by taking their courses, I realized they have very profound knowledge of programming, like they program in C++ to create inserts in R. They also have advanced knowledge of databases, web technologies, right? So indeed, it's a very rare combination of skills where somebody has those skills across the board. And I already mentioned there were healthcare workers. To be a data scientist, you also need to understand the domain within which you are analyzing data, right? So data science cannot be like in general. You need to understand something about business, about marketing, about education to crunch that data using statistical models and information technology tools, okay? So data scientist is not for everybody because, again, you need to have this wide array of skills. But again, all of you guys, you're well positioned to undertake that career if this is something that you like. But again, my impression is that it's like, it's a special talent and special interest that people have that brings them into this profession. But if you have a background in computer science, you can easily pick up like skills in relation to advanced statistics. And nowadays, a lot of computer science courses, they actually meshed up with those advanced statistical techniques related to deep learning, machine learning, and things like that, right? If you're a computer information systems major, then I think you're well positioned because you already have courses in statistics. You have courses in relation to business, so that could be your area of expertise, business, right? Business analytics. Maybe you'll have to pick up some advanced computing skills, way beyond what you have to take right now. So, anyways, I think all of you are positioned for that kind of profession. But you know, I did my own research about data scientists and employed because I specialize. One of my research streams is professional issues in IT, and I realized that in some areas, indeed, there are many jobs for data scientists. For example, I remember the two areas that I identified through my own research was New York and Los Angeles. This is where you have hundreds and hundreds of jobs for data scientists, right? When I did analysis for this area, I found very few jobs in Kentucky. There were like 3 or 4 jobs advertised for the entire state of Kentucky based on dice.com. And then in Tennessee, there were like more than 3, or there were like 12 or 15 jobs, right? So there are some jobs, but not as many, like if you're talking about this area related to data science. Maybe they're called differently or so, but it looks like those predictions about shortages, they're not materializing yet, right? Maybe we're still in the early stages of that. And because data is becoming such a strategic resource, a lot of organizations now appoint a vice president of data, and the title for that would be chief data officer or CDO. So this is the person responsible for the entire data asset for the entire organization. So that's another promising role that is still kind of out there. It's fashion, you know, it's not as common, but it's becoming fashionable. So maybe things will be moving there throughout the entire duration of the 21st century. So as you can see, some users are information producers, like knowledge workers, information workers, analysts. They produce information. Others are just information consumers. In other words, they need to have access to data, but they don't generate any output, any information, any processing themselves. Actually, nowadays, a lot of organizations push for this idea of pervasive BI, or pervasive business intelligence. It means extending business intelligence to all users, not just business analysts, not just to information workers, to everybody, so that everybody can make decisions based on data. Because there is that belief that basing information or basing decisions or actions on data is better than basing your decisions or actions based on gut feeling, right? Because if you have an upset gut, if you wake up in the morning and you feel nausea, right, you may make bad decisions. So that was a joke, right? So making decisions based on gut feeling makes you prone to mood swings and biases, the ones that we discussed previously. I told you that my former university, I used to work for Abu Dhabi University, they were actually very at the forefront of this idea of pervasive BI. Throughout the organization, there was this expectation that everything has to be based on data. Don't come to your manager and make a request based on opinion or rumors, right? Especially when it comes to money. If you're requesting money from the organization, you have to have data to show that you need that money and to show that there will be a positive ROI or return on investment based on the data. Okay. I remember following that suit, I kind of proved myself wrong in a lot of opinions that I had. For example, as a faculty, I was mostly teaching in the graduate programs, and that's why I had this biased opinion about the age, about the kind of customers we're serving. I mean, I'm talking about students, right? My impression was that an average age of our students would be around 30, between 27 and 30, like somebody who is already kind of grown up, right? Again, because I was mostly dealing with graduate students. And when we did analysis, we actually figured out that the average age of a student at the university was like 22 or 23 years old. So I was wrong about our demographics, about our main target group. And again, that project of using actual data to estimate average age of a student was dictated by the fact that the university was adopting that pervasive BI orientation, where everything is based on data, everything is based on analytics and not on opinion. Okay, what about BI tools? There are all kinds of tools out there to access data available in independent data marts or even directly from a data warehouse, although it's not that common to access data directly from a warehouse. This is not an exhaustive list. Those are just some examples. Number one, SQL language. SQL language is used to do what? Brandon.
It's used in databases for queries and basically transactional SQL, just anything used in databases.
Yeah, so SQL language, it's a language for formulating questions to databases, right? How many customers do we have under the age of 25, something like that, right? So you can use the structured query language to ask those specific structured questions to databases. And usually the kind of output that you get a table as an output from those questions. So knowing SQL language can get you very far in data analysis because you'll be able to answer a lot of questions from a database. By the way, in this class, I'm not requiring you to use SQL language because I realize people stand at different levels with respect to understanding of databases. Although I'll show you briefly, if you know SQL, you can do some of the steps in our assignments when we work on Microsoft Access using SQL as opposed to using point and click wizard interface, right? But I will show you, I will mostly concentrate on that point and click wizard interface so you don't have to look how the SQL query behind the report or behind the question looks like. Okay, reports. In this class, we'll generate all kinds of reports based on databases. So reports are usually simple graphical representations for users of data. So you write a query, but you don't show a query output to user. Instead, you create a nice looking report that looks pretty much like a Microsoft Word document, something like that, right? So users, they like documents, they don't like those technical outputs or screen dumps that some IT professionals generate. Drillable OLAP reports, those are, I may be wrong, but I think OLAP stands for online analytical processing. Yeah, that's what OLAP, it's like an old term, nobody is using it that much. But basically what we mean by an OLAP report, it's an interactive report that allows you to view data and also zoom in at certain categories or intersections. In this class, we'll do slicing, which is very similar to OLAP reports. Slicing will allow you to zoom in on data across different categories, to juxtapose those categories and see data at the intersection of those categories. Excel, well, this class is very big on Excel. We'll spend at least half of this class developing analytical models in Excel. It's still a very popular tool. And that's why, you know, it's used in all kinds of fields and all kinds of industries, regardless of whether you're a computer scientist or specializing in business or telecommunications, Excel will come in handy. And I've seen people doing amazing analytical work using Excel. I was surprised to see that even before this whole buzz about, in relation to big data, I've seen people opening Excel sheets with millions of rows and trying to make sense with those rows using the old-fashioned big data tool, which is pivot table. A pivot table allows you to quickly summarize lots and lots of records. You have specific decision support systems or applications. You have executive dashboards, executive scorecards. We'll see some screenshots or examples of those applications. There are all kinds of data visualization tools. Personally, I'm using R language for data visualizations because it can automate a lot of generation of graphs. Actually, I'm teaching my R course right now, and we'll cover those packages that are used for data visualization. But just to give you like a taste of why I'm using R, you see in Excel sometimes it takes a lot of time to create a nice looking visualization, to create one graph. And again, in this class, we'll create at least one or two graphs in relation to our assignments. It takes a lot of time to format, to enter all those variables, right? In R, you may have to put some thought when it comes to creating code for your graphs. But then with one click of a button, you just click run, you can generate not just one output, not just one graph, but you can generate the so-called faceted output where you have, let's say, 16 graphs displaying like different variables back to back, right? In Excel, you will spend one full day generating six nice looking visualizations. In R, it's done with a few lines of code, and you can quickly rerun it if your data is updated. But nevertheless, when it comes to data visualization, I think there's that popular tool nowadays that is getting a lot of popularity and a lot of reputation, specifically for data visualizations, called Tableau. How do you pronounce it, by the way? I pronounce it as Tableau. Is this correct pronunciation? Well, anyway, like this, I keep forgetting the correct pronunciation, so I'll pronounce it Tableau. By the way, last year we had an AATP event where one of our faculty was presenting his work in Tableau. It's used as a part of some of our graduate courses. I'm not sure whether they're using it in undergraduate courses. I think they do some introduction in 343, which is only a required course for CIS majors. You guys in the networking side, you don't take 343, right? You take 243, but not 343. Well, anyways, that's what I remember. And then you have all kinds of tools for data mining, predictive analytics. Again, my tool of choice is R, but there are all kinds of data mining tools. You know, visual. You know, they have point and click interface. SPSS, statistical package for social sciences, also has data mining add-ons nowadays, so you can do all kinds of things in SPSS as well. Again, This is not an exhaustive list, but just some examples of specific business intelligence tools and applications used within organizations. And next, we'll see some screenshots, examples of what we're talking about. Now, what you see here is the so-called OLAP cube. So it's not related to any specific application. It just shows you like what's the idea behind OLAP analysis. The idea is that you analyze data based on several dimensions. So here we have 3 dimensions, because this is what we can visualize. We can visualize 3 dimensions. Now, OLAP allows you to work across more than 3 dimensions. Again, you can do the same thing in Excel or R, but it's hard to visualize 4 or more dimensions, right? It's hard to depict it on a diagram. So here you have the so-called OLAP cube, which is the model that illustrates this analysis. And this cube is 3-dimensional. So we have 3 dimensions of analysis. We have product type. So we have camping equipment, personal accessories, outdoor protection, golf equipment. We have date. So we have data for 3 years, 2004, 5, and 6. And then retailer, the kind of store we're talking about. Warehouse store, golf shops, sports stores, outdoor shops, department stores. Okay. So as a manager, you can quickly zoom in, or I think they call it drilling in. You can quickly drill in on certain data points across those 3 dimensions. For example, you can ask the system, can you please show me sales of camping equipment, that's dimension number 1, in sports stores for the year 2006. So we're somewhere here, right? So it will quickly find you that cube. It will show you what kind of sales you have, right? Alternatively, it will say, okay, can I see trends for sports stores for personal accessories across 3 years? So it will build you a graph. It will pull the following 4 cubes and it will build you a graph so you can see what are the trends. Is it an upward trend or a downward trend? If it's a downward trend, then maybe you need to do something about those sports stores, discontinue them, update them, merge them with other types of stores. So this is how OLAP works. In Excel, this OLAP model is implemented using the so-called slicing tools, and we'll deal with those tools towards the end of this course when we deal with the topic of Access and Excel integration. We'll use slicing tools to zoom in on data across actually more than 3 dimensions sometimes, maybe 4 dimensions. And that's visualized with the help of tables, and those tables become, I think once you hit 3 dimensions, they already look complicated. If you add 1 more dimension, it will be like just table within a table within a table, and it becomes a bit hard to understand what's inside specific cells. So this is OLAP analysis. So here you have the so-called dashboard, executive information system, or executive dashboard. One popular vendor of business analytics or business intelligence applications and solutions that includes dashboards is MicroStrategy. It's a well-known software company specializing in business intelligence or business analytics applications. So here we have something related to human resources. So a manager of a human resource department may look to see what's happening with their human resource function from a financial standpoint. So here you have compensation claims, claims budget to actual, vendor billings, leave of absences that people file, vendor payables, and things like that. So it's like a dashboard that gives you a snapshot of how much benefits the workers are drawing through the, I guess, health insurance arrangement that this company has. That reminds me of an interesting project that was actually initiated by the government of Abu Dhabi. When I lived in Abu Dhabi, they started cracking on people who call in sick to work because it was becoming a problem. And one thing that they discovered by doing analysis, and that was like a scandal that it led to a scandal that made it to all the newspapers. Surprisingly, it was young people requesting most leaves of absences, not old people. Now, why do you think it was controversial? So what's the next conclusion if you see that more young people are requesting leaves of absences or sick days than older people? Okay, well, it's not the old, I'm not sure whether old people really care about that or not, but the whole public got upset because they felt that those younger people are slacking off.
I was going to say, probably that the young people don't care or hate the job.
Well, maybe you're right about hating, but you're trying to explain why it happens. I think the controversy comes down to this. You would expect older people to take more leaves of absences because of their, ailing health, right? I mean, by definition, younger people are healthier than older people, right? That's how life works, right? But it's younger people who are taking more sick days. So that led the government to the conclusion that there are a lot of slackers among young people, right? They party during weekend and then they call on Monday 6, pretending that they have a sore throat or something like that, right? So, and there was like, based on this data, a whole initiative was initiated to find those people, um, and also change the work culture, because as you were saying, it's about motivation as well, right? If people don't like their work, or maybe it's not that they don't like their work, they just like partying and enjoying life more than working, something like that, then it's a big problem for the society as a whole. By the way, in my work as a manager there, I run into a problem where people would give me like fake doctor notes. I mean, they're real in the sense that they're written by a real doctor, but they're fake because some people have a friend who's a doctor, right? And they complain about something that can be hardly verified, right? Um, so they come in and they will say like, I have a flu, and they don't do testing for flu, right? I mean, unless it's COVID. Nowadays they do, but in the old days they don't do it, right? So they would give them some kind of paper saying that the person is sick. They would bring it to me, and there's nothing I can do because it's like a legal medical paper. It's not like a fake paper, and those people would request a few days off. Same thing with students. There was once lady in my class. It was kind of funny. She missed my midterm exam, right? And what she didn't, basically, I was conducting my midterm exam. I don't know what she was doing, but she glanced into the door, like into this door window, and I saw her face, so I saw it was her, right? And then she disappeared. And then she brought me a note from a doctor saying that she was sick. And I said, look, I saw your face. You're lurking inside the classroom. So why are you saying you were sick at home? And she was like, well, no, I had to come to do something, but I was sick, things like that. Well, anyways, those are the kind of issues that you can detect by looking at, let's say, sick days leave request by age, right? Who is requesting more of those leave days, younger people or older people? Maybe you can also detect something related to overprescription. I already gave you this example. The largest insurance company in Abu Dhabi at that time, called Damak, they initiated this project where they were trying to crack on doctors who are overprescribing antibiotics. So they identified top prescribers and they work closely with them to make sure they don't overprescribe, because it costs a lot of money to the insurance company and also creates a health hazard where people who are overprescribed antibiotics, they don't take them properly, or they develop allergies, and then it becomes an additional healthcare expense for the insurer. Okay, so next we'll talk about metadata. I think last time we mentioned that metadata means what? What's the definition? What is that? Yeah, so metadata means like data about data, right? So it's data that describes data. Technical workers or IT personnel, they may need to have different metadata. In other words, their needs for understanding data are largely technical. For example, database administrators, software developers, they may want to know what data is stored in terms of variables, right? What are the variable names? What is the variable data type? Mapping of the data flows from sources to target, which means where this data is coming from and where it's going. Data refresh schedules, when the data will be updated. Data models, is it ERD model? Is it normalized? Table and attribute names, data transformation logic and business rules, like how data is calculated, how it's transformed, how it's summarized. History of metadata, version control, which means who created the description when, and also performance metrics for managing growth, how fast the system is when it comes to responding to queries. So the needs of technical workers are usually technical, right? They need technical information about the data being stored. For users, for end users, the metadata needs are usually on the business side of things. So they're not as concerned with technical matters, they're concerned with the business implications and business characteristics of the data that they're utilizing. For example, detailed business descriptions of the available data. Business is not rocket science, right? I mean, it's not, a lot of concepts in business, they're not based like on advanced calculus or anything like that. But it's fascinating to me how much confusion there is despite that simplicity, okay? For example, personally, while working with data, right, And while working with people in relation to data, I realized that a lot of business professionals, they do not have a good understanding of such variables or concepts as revenues or income. They don't understand what it is, okay? For a lot of people, a lot of people, I guess those people did not pay attention when they took accounting. I know that you guys, if you're in CIS, you have to take accounting. The same thing for cybersecurity, right? So whenever we work on assignments involving accounting, I ask very basic questions about accounting and people cannot answer those questions. And I understand that because people hate accounting and a lot of times they cannot relate to accounting because that's not how they see the world, right? I think to be an accountant, you need to have a special worldview, special charisma. Just like to be a statistician, you also need to have a certain worldview that most people don't have, right? For example, I like accounting and I think I understand accounting quite well, but I know that I could not work as an accountant. I'm not just that kind of detail-oriented person. And some people are. For example, my brother, he worked as chief financial officer and he is very detail-oriented. I mean, he can open a huge Excel sheet and within minutes, he'll find like a small inconsistency or error. I'm not like that. I don't like dwelling on small things. I like dealing with more fun, more strategic things, right? So you need to have a special personality to be good at accounting. Well, anyways, I realized that a lot of business professionals do not understand what profit means, like how profit compares to revenues or sales. Like a lot of times they think that profit is the same as revenues, which is not the case, right? Revenues means what? Your total sales, the dollar value of goods and services that you said. Now, you can be a huge company by revenues, but if you fail to keep a tight grip on your profit structure, on your cost structure, the profit will be low because profit means revenue minus what?
Expenses.
Yeah, revenues minus cost, right? So revenue. So you can be a huge company revenue-wise, but your profit can be quite low. For example, Warren Buffett says that he doesn't like investing in Japanese companies because they're huge companies by revenues, right? So if you look at Toyota, Nissan, they have a lot of revenues, but their profitability is not that as impressive, right? Versus some American companies that have huge profit margin. One of the companies that comes to my mind with a huge profit margin is Apple, right? I haven't done analysis lately, but I know their profit margin is very, very big. There have been some independent sources who basically estimated that the cost of manufacturing an iPhone, and that includes R&D, research and development, is around $100, right? And then they sell iPhones for what? Close to $1,000, like $700, $800, $900, depending on the version, right? So they have a huge profit margins. I'm pretty sure they're a hugely profitable company, right? Another industry that attracted my attention in terms of profit margin was those for-profits universities. I was quite surprised. Well, I may be wrong, but the last time, I may be wrong about the exact numbers, but the last time I've checked, their profit margins was like 40, 70%, right? So that's their net income. If you look at other prominent companies, they have huge revenues, but their profit margin is not as impressive. For example, Walmart. What would be your guess about their annual revenues, like their total sales? What would be your guess? No, number. In dollars, how much goods do they sell per year? What would be your guess approximately, your estimation? What would you say? 30 billion? Okay, anybody else? Hope. What's your guess? 20 billion? Okay, well, interesting. The last time I've checked, their revenues were $500 billion. That's the kind of annual revenues that they have, right? It's a huge number. I think $500 billion, that's the GDP of I wouldn't even say average, of a big European country, right? So that's a huge amount. But their profit margin is not that impressive. It's around 10%. So on all those billions of revenues, they make like a few $1 billion in profit. It's probably less than 10%, right? So yeah, some people don't understand those differences between revenues and then even when it comes to profit, there are very strict accounting definitions like net income, earnings before income taxes and depreciations. Again, you cover all those things in accounting, and a lot of people don't understand those nuances, and because of that, they're easily misled with those figures, right? Detailed business descriptions of data is very important to understand what we mean by profit or revenue. Subject areas, dimensions, and measures, like in what units are we measuring? Are we measuring in dollars, in Japanese yens, in euros, right? So we need to know those dimensions for business purposes. The source, where the data is coming from. The timeliness, how current the data is. What is the quality of the data? Can we trust it? Estimated response time for specific queries. I had a friend, that reminds me of an interesting story. I had a friend once who worked as a database developer for, he was more like a consultant. He would come to different organizations and help them set up a database. And his tool of choice was Microsoft Access, okay? Now, Microsoft Access is probably good for a small business, but it's not good for a big enterprise. Although in this department, I've seen some master students who would use Microsoft Access to develop solutions for local organizations that have like 200-300 employees. But I guess 200-300 employees is still a small business, right? It's kind of small to medium enterprise, right? Well, anyways, he told me once that he developed a database for an organization and then he left, right? And this database grew because the organization was growing, their business was growing. And then eventually, after a year or two, they called him back to come back and fix their database because the database was responding slow. And I asked him how slow. He said, well, this is how it works. I send a query to the database, then I make myself a cup of coffee and I go outside to drink this cup of coffee and smoke a cigarette. And then I come back and the query is still running, right? And then like after a while, it will give me some kind of output, right? So the system became, the database became so big. So he basically recommended switching to a different database technology because Microsoft Access was not handling that anymore, right? So response time is very important for business users. You don't want to take a 1-hour break to get a response from the database. And then governance issue. Who has access to specific data and reports? Sometimes it's a matter of organizational politics. You probably heard that saying, information is power or knowledge is power. So in a lot of organizations, if you control your data, you're in charge. If somebody else has access to your data, they're in charge. They can control you, right? So a lot of organizations, a lot of individual employees are very territorial when it comes to allowing other people to access their data. So that's an important business concern. Who has ownership of the data and how I can obtain it? Now, so we talked about metadata needs of different users, and it also gives you an idea of what kind of metadata descriptions are available, at least in some situations. And then we're going to talk about business intelligence and data quality. What do we do to improve quality of data that is stored within a data warehouse that is used to supply data to business intelligence tools or applications? A lot of times, business intelligence initiatives expose data quality problems within an organization. By that, we mean things like missing data, so some data is not available, right? Dummy values, for example, instead of entering zip code, somebody was entering 5 zeros, right? For example, for non-US clients because they didn't know what the zip code is. Multi-purpose fields, like one field is used for different purposes, which is a violation of first normal form, right? We'll talk about those normal forms later in this course. It's also a violation of one of those tidy data principles that I'm talking about individual summing too, so you'll read about it. So basically one field is used to store several values and sometimes you're not sure what exactly that field represents. And then reuse primary keys. It happens when databases are merged together. Some people have, some records will have duplicate primary keys. Again, we'll talk more about primary keys in this class, but it's something along the lines of people having duplicate social security numbers. You know what kind of problems it can lead to, right? Somebody can take a loan using your social security number and then default on that loan, and then your credit score will go down because of that. I don't know how common it is. Well, actually, I think it's quite common. You know, those cell phone companies, they reuse cell phone numbers, which I think is a bad idea. I know for a fact there were like several people of different nationalities using my cell phone number because I get all kinds of calls with people speaking to me in Spanish and also in Mandarin. I guess it's people who are of Chinese origin, right? So my guess is somebody who owned my number in the past. Actually, there are two people maybe. One was Hispanic, the other one was Chinese, right? So that's the kind of problem that number duplication creates, where people have the same cell phone number, right? So the same thing applies to data. When you have the same kind of primary key, all kinds of confusion can arise. Now, some of these problems can be addressed with data cleaning software. So there's software that can look at your data, identify missing values, estimate missing values, find duplicates of primary keys and suggest resolving those duplicates by assigning different primary keys. to those entries that are different, but nevertheless have the same primary key. But a better long-term, I mean, software can do so much. I mean, it cannot do beyond what a human with human intelligence can do to data. So the better long-term solution is to correct the data quality problems at the source. And that usually requires appointing a person to deal with data quality. You know, in my former organization, there was an interesting initiative. We had the so-called course files. So every faculty member, once he or she completes his course, has to file an Excel sheet together with some supplementary data that contains all kinds of analysis of the course. So for example, they would put things like number of students failing the course, number of students who got an A, you know, grade breakdown. You know, I remember there was a sheet about grade breakdown. Most importantly, this Excel sheet would include improvement recommendations. So the idea was that after you teach a course, you suggest some improvements so that next time you teach this course becomes a bit better. So you address some quality gaps, right? So that was the main idea behind those course files. You do your course analysis, you look at your assignments, you look at student performance, and then you suggest some improvements, right? Now, when I first came there, it was funny. The course file was physical, which means paper-based. And by the way, there were like a lot of submission requirements. For example, as a part of that course file submission, you had to show examples of student work for every assignment. And I think you're talking about like 3 examples per assignment. One example has to be like a failing grade, an excellent grade, and in-between grade, something like that, right? I'm telling you, some of my courses was like, you know those boxes from paper that is used in copier machines, like those kind of boxes with this size. So each course files was a box like that, right? So I would physically carry, like if I teach 4 courses per semester, I carry like 4 boxes to our data storage room. Now it didn't work very quickly with, you know, the storage room was probably half of that room in size of the size was like half of that lecture room. So I think within 2 or 3 years, they stacked up this room with those boxes and files, right? It didn't work. So I remember the next provost who came to the university, he was very like technology savvy. So he asked us to do the same thing on a USB drive, right? So he said, instead of bringing those papers, scan them and put them on a USB drive. So instead of carrying a box, you would carry a USB drive. And that was a bit more manageable, right? It's easier to carry a USB drive per semester than 3 or 4 huge boxes, right? And then eventually they install SharePoint. And SharePoint is that document flow software, organizational software. So everybody was uploading their course files through SharePoint, right? Now, here we're talking about the data quality. So technology, SharePoint did not address the issues with respect to data quality. You know what some faculty would do? Because it's a lot of work to create a course file. They would just copy their course file from previous semester, and then they would change like the dates. So instead of saying fall 2021, they would change, I don't know, fall 2022, but everything else remains the same, right? And when confronted about it, like why you're just copying course files from previous semester, he said, well, nothing has changed. I mean, my course is still the same, recommendations are still the same, right? So to track those people down who are not doing their job properly with respect to reporting data, we hired a full-time person to do that. The reason we did it, because I mean, it's important from quality standpoint to improve your courses every time you teach it, right? It was also formal accreditation requirements. It was a requirement of the local Ministry of Education and also AACSB, right? Which is that prestigious accreditation body for business schools. To wrap up the story, so this person started working with faculty, asking them to do it properly, to submit valid data. They hated her because they don't like, you know, what happens was you finish your semester, it's already summer. A lot of faculty feel like taking off and not thinking about the university for 2-3 months, but here you have this person bugging you about your course files, right? So they didn't like that idea. It all ended with this. We made course files a formal part of annual evaluation, okay? If you're submitting crappy course files with low data quality, you'll not get your pay raise, okay? So just to give you an example, every year, everybody gets like around 1% raise. It's like an inflation adjustment, okay? And then you can get like up to 4 or 5% raise if you're doing a great job in teaching, research, services, and course files. That was a separate category, okay? There were a couple of people, or maybe a few people, who were huge resistors to those course files. They hated them, but they didn't get their pay raise once, and they were so furious, and they remembered that for life. They kept cooperating after that, right? I guess what I'm trying to say here is that you see, it's not about tools and technologies. It's about working with people and finding the right kind of incentive structure so the data quality is actually improved. So yeah, you need to put people and processes and incentives to make sure that the data generated is of high quality. Now, next we'll talk about, let me just check it. Yeah, we'll talk about business intelligence governance. And by governance, we mean either high-level rules at a very strategic level, or something that is closer at the tactical or operation level, meaning like specific rules on data handling, right? So how do you handle client data? For example, you should not copy your client data to your personal laptop, something like that. That's operational rule. Governance, when we're talking about strategic level, governance deals with very high-level issues. For example, who owns data? I forgot which organization I looked at, but I really like their data governance policy from a strategic standpoint. You know what they said? They said that data is an important organizational resource. It belongs to no one, and at the same time, it belongs to everybody. Okay. As I said before, a lot of departments, a lot of employees, they're very territorial when it comes to their own data. They protect it from outsiders, and that makes it impossible to carry out any kind of analytical initiatives. So as an organization, you need to have a cross-functional committee or a team comprised of representatives from different units to formulate and enforce those rules, okay? Now, governance is a very interesting topic. You know, when I was an MBA student, when I was a master's student, I took a course on corporate governance because I needed an elective. And in my opinion, it was the most boring course ever. I mean, I sit in this course and they keep talking about committees, compensation committee, audit committee, and all those things. But I've noticed that a lot of MBA students, they were much older, much more experienced than I was. They were like in their 40s, sometimes in their 50s. And they found this course to be very exciting. They would share all kinds of stories about corporate governance, about corporate governance scandals. So they found this course to be very exciting, right? And then it's only when I became an administrator myself, I realized how important governance is, right? In my opinion, governance, this is the art and science of pushing people gently into the right direction. As a manager, as a leader, you cannot be looking over everybody's shoulder and monitoring what they're doing on a daily basis, right? First of all, you don't have time or resources for that as a leader of a large organization, right? Number two, if you do that, people will hate you, right? Why do you think people hate when somebody's looking over their shoulder? And there's a name for that. They call it micromanagement. Why do you think people hate micromanagement? Do you like close supervision when somebody's closely monitoring what you're doing? Say, no, don't do this, offering a correction at every step that you make. Do you like that or not? Most people don't like it. Why?
It can really make you feel like you don't know what you're doing, or they just don't believe in you or trust you.
Yeah, it's a bit insulting. Like it feels like they don't trust you. They don't trust you like from an ethical standpoint, or they don't trust your expertise, right? So there's something dehumanizing about it. They don't value you as a human. They don't trust you as a human. They don't trust you as a professional, something like that, right? So as a manager, you cannot and you should not do that. And also, as a manager, sometimes you don't have technical expertise in all areas to micromanage people, right? So you need to let them do their thing. But you need to have very strict rules in place, governance mechanisms, policies, how things should be done, right? You know what I've noticed? The approach that people use in the United States with corporate governance, and I still think that in the United States, the governance system is very progressive, although it's becoming very bureaucratic, in recent decades. It's becoming harder and harder to do things at the corporate level, right? The idea is that a lot of leaders, a lot of managers, they give you a lot of freedom, and they don't really monitor what you're doing. But if you're caught cheating, then the punishment is very severe. That's the philosophy they use, right? You get all kinds of autonomy, all kinds of freedom, but the punishment is quite severe if you get caught cheating or doing something unethical, right? You know what was so surprising to me? I was once dealing with a lawyer, here and with the government agency, and I was very shocked that they asked me to photocopy my documents. The reason I was shocked because in my culture, right, in my country, like in Ukraine, everything has to be not only photocopied but attested by a notary public. So they will look at the original document, they will look at the photocopy, then they'll put a note saying, yes, this is a true copy and things like that, right? So it kind of got me thinking, like, why they're not requesting notary public? And then at the end, I had to sign a paper that says something like that. I understand that there is a severe penalty that involves jail time for forging documents, right? So I signed that paper, and then I realized, well, it makes sense. Look, if you're putting those strict measures in place where you're micromanaging paperwork, right, you're going to upset a lot of people like me who don't have any intention to cheat, right? So you're going to waste their time. You're going to make them upset. And still, you will not prevent criminals from doing their thing, because if somebody is out there to forge a paper, they will do it, right? They will do it with a notary public. They will find a way to circumvent all kinds of things, right? So why do it? So that's the philosophy, right? Governance, lots of freedom, but severe punishment, right? To the point where I find sometimes punishment to be too severe. I find it crazy that courts in the United States give you like 18 life sentences. Like, what does it mean? 18? It's just like the whole severity of that kind of sounds very harsh. Not just a life sentence, but 18 life sentences, right? What does it mean? So anyways, that's the governance here. It works. And again, it pushes people in the right direction. Everybody knows that I have freedom, but I need to do things to the best of my knowledge in accordance with the highest ethical standards, because the punishment is very severe. So that's governance, right? Creating rules that force people to do their best work, right? Within, that is also in the best interest of the organization. So that's the essence of leadership, in my opinion. Creating a good corporate governance structure, right? That's the main job of a very high-level leader who's in charge of big organization, a big country, or a big corporation. So a business intelligence committee would approve new business intelligence project, prioritize project, establish schedules, resolve issues, create data definitions, approve policies, and things like that. So within large organizations, it's very common to have a data governance committee that is responsible for all those projects and initiatives in relation to business intelligence. Now, one quick comment. In the beginning of this lecture, we talked about organizations achieving tangible results with the help of business intelligence initiatives. Well, quite often to a great frustration of managers, because they invest a lot of money into business intelligence, the small local impact, for example, cost from consolidating databases, or time savings when it comes to responding to supply requests, those smaller things, they can be quantified. You can show, okay, now we can respond faster to suppliers. But when it comes to global impact, which means high-level strategic impact, improving our position in the marketplace, it's very hard to tie investments in business intelligence to specific performance measures at the corporate level, because as a corporation, your corporate performance is dependent on so many things other than business intelligence. For example, market conditions, right? There's one interesting thing you learn by running your own business is that market is the king. I mean, there's so much you can do to the market. In other words, I would say there's nothing you can do to the market. The only thing you can do as a business is to adapt to the market needs. There are a lot of businesses out there, they believe they have more power than the market. They assume that stance where they can bend the market, they can educate the market. Well, it's not going to happen. You're not going to bend the market. Most likely you will fail, right? Something along the lines, like somebody says, like my wife says, like she wants to start a Vietnamese soup restaurant in Murray. She's just talking about it, right? And I said, look, I love Vietnamese soup. Like in a big city, you will find all kinds of Vietnamese soup joints, but there is a reason why there's not one in Murray, right? In fact, there was like a small Vietnamese cafe, like right there in the corner. It failed, right? The reason for that, the market doesn't need it. That's the reason, right? The market probably doesn't need it, okay? You're not gonna persuade people in the market that they need to eat Vietnamese soup, right? If they want to eat Vietnamese soup, you can give it to them, but you cannot tell them to eat Vietnamese soup, right? So that's what I'm saying. At the very global level, business intelligence initiative, they clash with so many powerful forces such as market needs. So it's hard to tie investments into business intelligence initiative with high-level organizational performance sometimes. And that creates a certain degree of dissatisfaction with business intelligence to the point where managers, organization think it doesn't work. Like Warren Buffett, he doesn't believe in business intelligence. According to him, he doesn't own a computer. He only has a cell phone that he's using for viewing YouTube videos. All of his analysis is done by reading printed out paper reports and a calculator, right? So that's his business intelligence. Also, something about business intelligence trends. Here you have a world cloud. So this is what's happening with business intelligence nowadays. Maybe this word cloud is a bit outdated. For example, what I don't see in this cloud is big data. Everybody's talking about big data nowadays. Maybe it's somewhere here. Yeah, I guess big data is captured by the scalability keyword, right? Scaling business intelligence applications to huge data sets measured in such units as petabytes or zettabytes. Personally, I'm interested in text analytics. I'm interested in analyzing textual data because most data available out there, most digital data is actually not quantitative, it's qualitative. It's in the form of tweets, reports. A lot of business intelligence are cloud-based. For example, when I'm doing, actually a few years ago, I ran into a situation where my office computer is not powerful enough to do text mining, some of the text mining exercises that I'm doing for my own research. What I'm doing right now, I'm taking a subset. For example, if I have a sample of, 30,000 tweets, I know that my computer may not handle that. So I take a sample of 1,000, 5,000 max, right? So that's the kind of data set that my computer can handle for text mining purposes. I'm thinking about renting some space from Amazon Cloud Services so I can do large scale text mining, but so far I haven't got into that. And the main reason is money, because it will cost quite a bit to subscribe to those services. So I'm not sure whether it's feasible. Anything else? Another topic that I'm dealing with is in-memory analytics. I teach a course on R programming, and one thing about R is that analytics is done in memory, meaning using random access memory. Data sets are loaded in RAM, right? And because of that, they are very fast. Now, what's the downside of doing analytics in RAM? As opposed to, let's say, loading data from hard drive, then analyzing it bit by bit, and then loading it back to the hard drive. So what's the upside of using in-memory analytics is speed. The downside is what? Well, RAM is expensive and limited, right? Most computers have huge hard drives, but they have very limited volume of RAM. So that becomes an issue. Now, so anything else that caught your attention? Anything else that you would like to discuss? You have software as a service, you have mobile BI. I like BI gadgets related to health, right? I'm trying to learn more about the kind of apps available, the kind of devices available. I think a lot of people are using it nowadays. Those Fitbit, wristwatches and things like that, that analyze your health-related behavior. Anything else that caught your attention? Well, I would like to just summarize this trend, MS Office integration. People say a lot of smack about Microsoft and Microsoft Office, but it's still the de facto standard out there for data analytics, to the point where large business intelligence platforms such as SAS, that's a big, that's a provider of large scale corporate type of business analytics solution. Even SAS platforms, they have Excel interface. In other words, as a user, you work with that system through an Excel interface because it's just so deeply ingrained in the way office workers work, in the way they do their tasks. So Microsoft Excel is still right there. Not even Microsoft Excel, but also Microsoft Access is still right there. Speaking about Microsoft Access, our department chair, Dr. Raj, he's very big on Microsoft Access, and he's actually like some kind of, not entrepreneur, they call it intrapreneur. He's an innovator within the organization. You know what he's doing? He's dumping a lot of data that MSU is generating into Microsoft Access databases, and he's creating interesting applications on the top of that. One of those applications is assurance of learning database that allows you to generate all kinds of reports in relation to assessment data that is pulled from Canvas, right? So Access interface is still very valuable. And that's why in this class, we'll spend quite a bit of time dealing with Access and Microsoft Excel, because it's not an enterprise grade solution, but when it comes, even sometimes when it comes to working with enterprise grade solutions, you may still be well equipped to work with a solution if you know how to use Access and Excel, especially together. So out of all those trends, I would like to highlight also scalability, dealing with big data, and also pervasive BI or BI-based organizations. We already mentioned that, right? So making business analytics, business intelligence accessible to all levels, all employees, so that all decisions are made based on data, based on information, and not based on rumors or gut feeling. Just a couple of final remarks. There's also, when it comes to business intelligence application, there's an issue of latency. People have this belief that real-time data is better, but not everything needs to be real-time, right? For example, the response lag for certain applications have to be very small. Something, if you're talking about managing, an airport, right? Or managing air traffic, in that case, your applications have to be real-time, right? Because even 1 second delay can cause a lot of errors. By the way, there was this tragedy where 2 airlines crashed over Europe. I think it was like around 2006. One was an American FedEx airplane. Well, I wouldn't say fortunately because it's still like a lot, but there were only 3 people like FedEx pilots sitting there. But the other airplanes, there were kids returning from a summer camp. There were like 200 kids on the plane. Unfortunately, all of them died, right? I think they died somewhere over Switzerland. And when they did an investigation, the traffic control, it was largely him to blame because he gave conflicting reports. Basically, they found out that he was so stressed out, he was overworked. He took like a small break, I think, to make a coffee. He just stepped out from his space for like 5 seconds or 10 seconds to pour some coffee for himself. And that was enough for him to lose control of the situation. And that led to this tragedy, right? So some applications are real time, but other applications, they don't have to be real time. For example, I guess educational industry comes to my mind. You know, a lot of things that do not have to be real time. For example, would it matter for you if you find out your final grade, let's say, on the official final date of the semester, or you have to wait for 3 days? What do you think? Is it a big deal if you wait for 3 days? Maybe it's somewhat unpleasant, but not like a life and death situation, right? So some applications do not have to be real time. Also, there's an increasing practice of harvesting data streams. Nowadays, all kinds of devices, we're talking about sensors, RFID tags, also humans, they're generating a lot of streams. Speaking about streams, I think humans are generating those streams using social media a lot. And without naming anyone, but you know, I have those colleagues, like people working at Mercy State. I look at their tweets, and they're tweeting like 30 times per day, right? So that kind of makes me want to like, when do they have time to do their main job and take care of their families if they're tweeting so much, right? And a lot of times those tweets are very hateful, like they have those strong political positions. I'm like, I cannot do it. You know, to me, it's some kind of disease, right? You're hooked on those tweets, you're wasting your time, and you're also ruining your relationships because you're posting those angry political posts that rub a lot of people the wrong way, right? So anyways, a lot of tweets generated a lot of social media posts. So a lot of organizations, they harvest those streams in real time and then analyze them in real time. Have you ever noticed sometimes when you see something negative, let's say in Facebook about an organization, let's say Starbucks, right? What happens oftentimes, within minutes, there is a Starbucks representatives there, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you had this unpleasant situation. Let us make it right for you," right? So what they're doing, they're running those crawlers, those spiders or crawlers that monitor all those tweets and streams in real time. And whenever they see somebody's mentioning Starbucks, they send a human employee there to see what they're talking about, right? So that's called harvesting digital data streams, a very important trend in business analytics. Yeah, finally, I will just show you like some examples of dashboards. So here we have a dashboard, sales dashboard for 1-800-contacts. This is a company that sells contact lenses. When I first saw 1-800-contacts, for some reason, I thought it's a marketing company selling potential customer contacts or something like that. But that's contact lenses. So for every employee, they see closing ratio, I mean, how many sales they make versus calls, average sale amount, calls per hour, and then you have qualitative feedback for customers. Here you have an example of a real-time business intelligence application involving an airport. It's really amazing how they dispatch customers in airports because it's a very hectic and stressful environment. You know, there was one time when I flew into the United States through New York, and there was a connecting flight to San Francisco. And during that flight, I knew that I'm not going to make it to that San Francisco flight, and I was already stressed out and upset. I thought, well, I'll get stuck in New York. I will either have to go to a hotel. You know, to my great surprise, when I arrived to the gate, there was an airline employee waiting for me there. They hold my name tag or something. So they found me, and because they knew I'm late for my San Francisco flight, they dragged me across customs, immigration, and registration so I can quickly board that other flight, right? I didn't wait, so they basically dragged me everywhere. I didn't have to stand in line. And I was so relieved because I don't know, I guess after a long transcontinental flight, you just feel very tired, upset. And that's why a lot of passengers are angry. Not because they're angry people, but because they're just so tired, right? So I was very stressed out by the situation, but I was also amazed how quickly they dispatched me. How do they do it? Well, they probably have analytics. They don't do it manually. They have analytics applications that flag customers, right, if they're late for their flight, to the point where they do it like in real time. They transmit this data to the flight. For example, you know, I was talking about this was like 2003, approximately 2003 when it happened. Approximately 10 years ago, I've noticed that they will send some kind of message to the flight while the airplane is still in the air, and they will flag those people who are late, and they will already give them some directions, or they will give them some kind of instructions or boarding passes for the next flight so they can quickly move, right? So they're doing everything in real time, all those dispatching. And again, here we're talking about serious matters, sometimes even life and death situations. Finally, I would like to say that if you would like to learn more about business intelligence, I recommend, out of all things, I recommend TDWI. It's Data Warehousing Institute. I'm subscribed to their mailing list, and I'm trying to participate in some of the events. I think they're based in Chicago, actually, so they're not that far from here. So this is what I recommend, TDWI. Also, you can join the Association of Information Systems, and I'm a member of this organization as well. And they have a special interest group related to decision support, systems knowledge management, data management. Here you also have some websites and journals, again, if you would like to read more about this topic. Okay, friends, so that completes our discussion on business intelligence. I will take attendance in a couple of minutes. We still have 2 minutes left. This is what we're gonna do on Thursday. On Thursday, we'll continue working on assignment 2, and I'm hoping we can complete assignment 2, we can get it done, right? Ideally, you should come to, if you're a face-to-face student, you should come to the lab to work on the assignment. If you're a Zoom student, then you can connect to us in Zoom and work on assignment 2, right? Work on assignment 2. And since you'll be connected in Zoom, you can ask questions in Zoom. You can share your screen, I can answer your questions, right? At the same time, I don't want to waste your time. Like, for example, if you are done with assignment 2 by Thursday, I don't want you to come to the lab and just sit there doing nothing, right? So what I'm suggesting is that if you're not done, then come to the lab or join us in Zoom. We'll work on it, okay? If you are done, just for me to mark you present for that day, connect to me in Zoom and show me what you've done before you submit it, something like that, right? So in that case, I will mark you present and you don't have to sit in the lab, okay? So there are always like those people who are already done and they don't need to come to the lab. So this is the arrangement for you. Does it make sense? So if you're not done, come to the lab or join us in Zoom. Let's work on it. If you're done, just connect to me in Zoom and show me what you've done before you submit it, and I'll mark you present for Thursday, okay? So that's the arrangement. Now, before we go, let's take attendance if you don't mind. Clifton?
Here.
Thank you. Braden?
Here.
Nathan? Thank you. Devontae?
Here.
Thank you. Aaron David. Jessica?
Here.
Hope? Sean?
Here.
Harrison? Tristan? Violet?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the Zoom section. So you guys are free to go. Thank you for coming today. Wesley?
Here.
Aaron Haney?
Here.
Okay, Tucker? Chinese?
Here.
Thank you. Jacob?
Here.
Caitlin? Caitlin not here. Jason?
Here.
Brandon?
Here.
Casey? All right, thank you very much. Thank you for joining
I'm
us
here.
in Zoom today.
Yeah, I am here.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and disconnect unless you have any questions or comments. Oh, really? Sorry. Maybe I still. Yeah. Happens sometimes. Mason, oh yeah. And I didn't call Ahmed for some reason. Ahmed is not here. All right, thank you. Yeah, just two scrollers here. I got lost.